freedom to be able to think about some of those other bigger things as well. And these guys are going to sneak out. They're going to try and sneak out without us realizing and walk right in front of the microphone. Let's give them a cheer as they subtly walk out. Whoa.
We have an appointment.
Okay. Good to see you. So what we thought would be a good idea would be to just, over each of these we meet, the first one of each month, that we just begin to interview some of the different team members, just so you can get to know us a little bit and get to know some of our story a little bit. So I'd like you to put your hands together and welcome this evening Richard, who's part of our team.
Thank you. Is this on? Yay, there we go.
So
thanks, Tim.
So Rich, we're going to try and play this sort of in the round, because we've got some people over here, some people over here. You are, well, I'm guessing 21, 22 years of age?
I wish. 27 now.
27? Okay.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
And you are a student?
I am, yes. Third year at Regent's Theological College.
Okay. Theological College, just expand what that
yeah,
means.
it's basically, I'm doing kind of a youth-orientated course, so it's basically studying Christian youth work, in a nutshell. Christianity, God, the Bible, that kind of stuff.
So third year, you are just a few months off from finishing a degree.
I am, yes.
So it's pretty heavy work.
Yeah, tell me about it.
And that's not a Worcester accent?
No, it's not. I'm from Cardiff, South Wales. No.
Okay. Tumbleweed. Okay, so you're from Wales. Actually, I'm from Wales as well. Tumbleweed. So, 27, from Wales. You're now in the final throes of doing a degree in like Christian youth work. Sounds like you pretty much got your life sorted together.
Yeah, pretty much, I think.
You're engaged.
I am, hoping to get married next year.
Fiance's here.
If she's lucky.
Just give us a wave if you're here, fiance.
If I'm lucky, that's right, yeah.
Yes, that's right, you're learning. Just give us a wave where you are, fiance, Natalie. There you are. Round of applause for Natalie. She's English. She's English. It's a great move. It seems like a lot of things are going good for you.
Yeah, really good.
Have you had a really easy life and things been really simple and straightforward for you?
I'd love to say so, but definitely not. I think things began really well for me. I came from like a really good home. My father was like, he was kind of like a financial director, so we came from a middle class background. Things were pretty cool and everything. But kind of from the age of about, 10 or 11, I think things significantly changed for me and weren't quite as together as I would have liked them to have been. Okay, so we'll pick up a little bit what maybe some of those causes were 10 to 11, but maybe take us forward to about 14 years of age, 15 years of age. Okay.
What were some of the things you might have been involved in at that time?
Wow. Well, I think at the age of about 13, I was excluded from my first school, so I was now attending my second one. So it's quite amazing that I'm now doing a degree, really. And in the second school was really when I started to take quite a lot of drugs. Just started off smoking pot, taking speed, ecstasy, that kind of stuff, and drinking quite heavily as well, getting into lots of fights, and that's when I really started to get into trouble with the police.
So what happened then between the age of 10 and 11 and 13, 14 that sort of took you from this respectable young lad from a middle-class family to sort of multiple drug use, exclusion from school, violence, trouble in police? Quite a lot happened in a 3 to 4 year period there. Yeah,
quite a lot. And I've had quite a lot of time to reflect on it, really. And I think, even from quite a young age, I'd always kind of, sensed that there was just something missing in my life. And I guess when you're that young, you can't really articulate that very well. But yeah, there always felt like there was just something missing. And I never really fitted in as well when I was growing up. I was quite an intelligent guy, quite geeky, and kept myself to myself. So I didn't make friends very easily. So I think I was quite kind of excluded from stuff and always felt quite alone. And got bullied quite a lot as I was growing up as well. So I didn't have a particularly happy childhood. So I then decided that enough was enough and I was going to start to get a bit of a reputation, start to pick some fights and maybe that would help things, which it didn't really. And then kind of part of that and kind of part of acting up to a crowd really was then starting to take drugs and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So that was some of how the journey of not feeling like there was something missing.
Yeah, just empty.
Bullying.
Really, yeah.
And you can understand how when people's lives feel empty, they begin to search for some meaning in things that give quick fixes in their life. Totally understand that. Tell us how bad it got.
It got pretty bad. During my first year of high school, so year 7, I guess that's kind of like 11, 12 years old, whatever, that's when I started to self-harm. So I'd had real anger issues. So because I'd started to pick fights with people, started to fight quite a lot, that really kind of released quite a lot of anger within me. And I couldn't channel that very well, so that's why I started to self-harm. And then as I started to take a lot of drugs as well, when you come down off drugs, and it's just really difficult to deal with a come down. So again, more and more self-harm. So when I was about 14, I was taken out of mainstream education, and I was actually put into a child psychiatric unit because I was cutting myself every weekend, having to go to hospital, get stitched up. Things were really, really bad. And then I was admitted again when I was 16 to an adult psychiatric unit because my mental health had deteriorated because of the drugs and everything. So, I mean, things got pretty bad. Multiple suicide attempts as well, kind of cut my neck open with a carving knife. I know it's a bit grim, but that's how bad it got, really.
So that would have been, 8 years ago when it got really bad?
Yeah. Seems like a lifetime now.
A lot's happened. So
yeah.
How's it all turned around? Have you just been really determined to fix your life, or has there been some other thing that's made a difference?
It definitely wasn't my determination, because I had tried throughout my teens and stuff. I always wanted to do something better with my life, but I just never felt like I could. And when I was about 17, I got thrown out of home, and I had a social worker who got me my own flat and stuff, which was a really bad move because I could basically do what I want when I wanted to. And things just continued to spiral. Drug use continued and all this kind of stuff, and it just got worse and worse and worse. But kind of during that time, my father became a Christian. And then my mother became a Christian as well. And he used to pray for me, and he used to pray for me all the time. And I only found out about this recently. But all the time he was praying for me. And I was living in kind of North Wales-ish. My parents were in South Wales, so there's quite a lot of distance between us. So I didn't have much contact with them. I was living with a girl who was a heroin addict. Things were pretty rough between us. And then we ended up splitting up. And I had nowhere to live, and I was homeless. So I phoned my parents up one day, not expecting to get a good response, because you can imagine with all the drug use and everything else that actually our relationship had been really, really stormy. In fact, when I was 16, I tried to kill my dad with a knife, which didn't go down too well. So it was pretty rough. So I rang them up and said, I'm in this situation. I don't know what to do. And my mum said, why don't you come home? And I couldn't really believe that she'd suggested it. But I went. I had nowhere else to go. So I moved back in with my parents. And it was just incredible being back home and being part of a family, having been away for so long. And then I started to attend a church up the road. And, things changed after a very interesting evening.
But this is where it gets the most weird in a sense, because a lot of people would think, how on earth can just attending a church that, to be honest, they feel a bit dusty. They're a bit, almost like museums of the past for many people in understanding. Go through all these ceremonies within them. How did that result in what we see today, which is someone whose life has been fixed and put back together? Some people might struggle to know exactly what that link was.
Yeah, well, the church that I attended, it looked pretty modern on the outside. It didn't look like a church building, but inside it was pretty dusty, pretty boring, pretty drab. I'd started to go, and I'd been going for a couple of weeks. And if I'm honest, I'm not really sure why I was going, but there was just, I don't know, there was just this idea within me that it was the right thing to do, and I had nothing better to do with my time. So I kept going. And then one night, something drastically changed in my life. And I'd had some pretty surreal experiences when I'd been on drugs and stuff, and like hallucinations and all that kind of stuff. But I was sat at the back of a church one night, and I don't really remember what was being said or what was going on, other than I felt God spoke to me. Not in the way that I'm speaking to you now, but I don't know, just something really deep within. And it was weird, but it was the most real experience I've had. So I'd had these weird experiences on drugs, and it was nothing like that. And essentially, God said to me that if I wanted forgiveness, and I really, really wanted forgiveness. And if I wanted freedom from all the stuff that was going on in my life, then all I had to do was follow Jesus Christ. And I didn't really understand exactly what that meant, how that would radically change my life. But I went with it because I was in such a bad place that I would have done absolutely anything. So I said yes. And I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And I wasn't used to crying because you can imagine I wasn't that type of person. But I did, and it was incredible.
So forgiveness was quite a key thing for you.
Definitely.
Having that sense of, because we can try and fix our lives up, can't we? But we always still carry that stuff around. In fact, I was reading a story this week, a brilliant story of a priest who had heard that someone in his parish was seeing visions of Jesus, and he was a bit cynical. He didn't quite understand what was happening. So he went to see this lady and said, "Listen, if you see a vision of Jesus again, will you ask him one thing? Will you ask him to tell you the sins or the things that I've done wrong? Ask him to tell, because he's the only person who would know that stuff." And so he went away thinking, well, she's never going to have an answer. And then a few weeks later, he'd heard that she had a vision again. So he went to see her, and she said, I asked him the question that you asked me, really. And so he was a bit braced for what Jesus was going to say, because, he confessed some pretty horrible stuff. And she said, yeah, Jesus said to me he couldn't remember. That basically he'd forgotten, he'd forgiven you of all the wrong stuff you'd done. And that's really the central message of Christianity, isn't it? It's that Jesus is able to sort of clean that stuff up in our lives, to fix us up from the stuff we've done wrong. And that gives us hope to build with like a new clean slate, really.
Yeah, definitely. And like forgiveness for me was the starting point. That was what really helped me to deal with a lot of the stuff that had gone on in my life. I think that feeling like I've been forgiven by God helped me to really sort things out with my family, because things were still stormy, even though I was, back there and they were Christian and stuff. So that was really the thing that began the really positive stuff in my life. But then resulting from forgiveness, then God gave me a real sense of purpose, as in I really wanted to help young people who'd been through similar issues to me. And that's how I then ended up coming to college, doing the degree, finding a fiancé, and having an incredible life now.
Brilliant. And what some people may not realise, because this stuff doesn't get into the press that often, that there are actually, your story is not a unique story, that actually in this country there'll be, many hundreds, millions of people actually who'll have stories of Jesus, they believe that Jesus has forgiven them. And around the world, there are billions of people who have found what they believed Jesus to be, a forgiver of their lives and someone to give them new hope. And so, tonight I hope you sort of enjoy just getting to know Rich a little bit, because you've only ever seen, those who've been here before, only ever seen the together Rich. His life is doing well. He's a few months off his degree, hopefully, and hopefully with a bit of prayer and a bit of hard work. But all of us have stories, and it might be that you're going through some questions about life and purpose, and maybe some of the things Rich has touched on are things that maybe you know of in your life or you've wondered about. And we just hope that Rich's story just helps you think maybe something about your life. And if we as a team here can be of any help in having some of those discussions, or helping you, or just a good prayer that I know many people pray is, God, I don't know if you're real, but if you are, would you please show yourself to me? And that's a great prayer. It's a really honest prayer. It doesn't say God, it doesn't sort of try to work up to him, but it just is a really honest prayer. I don't know if you're real, God, but if you are, would you just show yourself to me? Because if you are, I think I really should know about you. And that's a great prayer to pray. But if we can be of any help on that journey, then we'd love to be. Thanks for listening so well. Can we give Rich a round of applause, sharing his story? And, that's my Jeremy Kyle bit for the night. So thanks for that. If you want to go back, take your seats again, you can do that. We are going to be finishing in about 10 minutes, I think. So just a few minutes time. But great seeing you all. On the tables, or there should be on the tables, these little cards that Adam's got there. That just give a little bit of information of who we are, and give you an option of giving us some details so that we can keep you in touch with some of the things that we do in here. We'd love it if you get a chance to fill those out, and so we can keep in contact with you. And also, if you've got any prayer requests, you can put those on, and we pray for them as a team as well. But thanks for joining us.